The river should have been alive. It should have murmured, rushed, whispered through reeds and under fallen branches, carrying the scent of distant mountains and the trembling breath of things upstream. It should have wrapped its cool voice around stones and logs, singing the constant reassuring music of moving water. But today the riverbed was silent, utterly dry. The beaver stood at the base of his old dam, once a sprawling masterpiece of woven sticks and mud, now cracked, sagging, and useless against a river that no longer existed. His whiskers twitched with uncertainty, his broad tail lay flat on the dusty ground, and his black eyes glimmered with something confused and uneasy. He was old enough to remember the sound of the current, and young enough to know that this silence wasn't natural. The dam towered above him like a skeleton of a forgotten world. The mud had hardened into brittle plates. The branches had split and curled under heat that shouldn't have reached this far north. The beaver sniffed the air. No scent of water, no wet earth, no insects, no distant splash of a fish tail. Nothing. The forest around the dam held its breath as if afraid to break the stillness. From the ridge above the empty riverbed, Martin Lakewell trudged forward with hesitant steps, boots crunching on dry pebbles that should have been underwater. His ranger vest clung to him with sweat. He'd never known this valley to feel so hot, not even at the end of August. He stopped when he saw movement below. A beaver, standing perfectly still, staring at the dam as if expecting it to speak. Martin sighed. "Buddy, you shouldn't be here. There's nothing left." His voice didn't echo. Sound simply fell, flat and dull. He frowned. That wasn't normal. Even dry, the riverbed should have thrown his words back at him. The beaver didn't react to Martin's voice, but his head jerked slightly, toward the dam, toward a gap between the cracked logs. Martin followed the animal's gaze and froze. Something glinted inside the dam. Something metallic. He squinted, took a cautious step down the embankment, boots kicking up thin sheets of dust. The beaver stepped back, not afraid, but wary, protective. "Okay," Martin murmured, holding his hands up. "You win. I'm just looking." The metallic glint pulsed faintly. A light? No. The sun was behind him. Something inside the dam gave off that glimmer. Martin crouched slowly and brushed away a layer of hardened mud. It cracked off like pottery shards. Beneath it, wedged between two logs, was a smooth metal disc the size of a grapefruit. Its surface wasn't silver or steel, nothing like industrial metal. It looked more like, he swallowed, like mercury frozen in place, like liquid that had refused to move. It wasn't a piece of trash. It wasn't debris. It wasn't anything he knew. The beaver slapped its tail once, hard, on the dry ground, a warning without water's amplifying splash. Martin raised his hands again. Okay, I'm not touching it." But the disc pulsed again. A soft, inward ripple, like something breathing without air. Martin stepped back sharply. "What the hell?" The beaver growled. A low, almost imperceptible rumble, nothing like the chatter of a normal beaver. Its body lowered, muscles tense. The disc pulsed deeper, and the air around it shifted. Not visibly, not with wind, but with a sensation, a pressure. Martin felt it in the cavities of his ears, in his teeth, in the space behind his eyes. A memory surfaced, something his grandfather once said about the river. "It's never just water, Marty. It remembers things, and it speaks, if you know how to listen." But the current wasn't speaking now. It had gone silent because something had replaced it. Martin took a half step back. The beaver took a half step forward. Both of them stared at the metal disc embedded in the dam. It pulsed once more. A faint vibration rippled through the dry earth, moving outward from the dam, traveling down the entire length of the empty riverbed like a message sent with no language. Martin's breath hitched. The beaver's whiskers quivered violently. Somewhere downstream, rocks rattled. Upstream, a tree shed leaves in a sudden flurry. Birds took flight without sound, wings beating in eerie silence. The disc pulsed again, and Martin realized, with a creeping chill spreading down his spine, it wasn't a signal. It was a call. Not for water, not for life, but for everything the current used to carry. The beaver backed away suddenly, eyes wide with instinctual terror. Martin followed its gaze upstream. Dust rose, not from wind, from movement beneath the riverbed. Something old and buried was following the pulse, something that had once lived in the current, something that had been silenced when the water vanished, something that had waited beneath the dry stones and cracked mud for the signal to return. Martin grabbed the radio on his belt. It produced no static, no sound, no current. He looked at the beaver. The beaver looked at the dam. The disc pulsed again, and the riverbed answered. The beaver bolted first. A sudden, frantic scramble of claws on brittle mud, instinct overriding hesitation. Its stout body darted toward the shadow of the pine woods, tail dragging dust in a wide arc. Martin didn't run, not yet. He just stood there, rooted by fear he didn't want to name. Something was coming. He felt it long before he heard it. A pressure swelling through the earth, a tremor without the violence of an earthquake, a rolling presence that moved with the slow purpose of a creature that had forgotten how to be fast. Martin stepped back. No, this isn't normal. His own voice came out flat, deadened, swallowed by the unmoving air. He turned and sprinted toward higher ground. Behind him, the riverbed moved. Not collapsed, moved. Cracks raced through the dry mud in branching lines that converged toward the beaver dam like veins feeding into a heart. Pebbles jittered. Dust lifted and hovered, refusing to fall back down. Martin risked a glance over his shoulder. Something long and pale glided beneath the surface of the riverbed, displacing dirt like a submarine moving under thin ice. He couldn't see its shape, only the wake of shifting earth it created, following the dam. Following the disc, Martin's lungs burned as he scrambled up the bank, boots slipping on loose earth. He reached the top and turned just as the beaver dam shuddered. A deep, hollow thump rolled through the valley. Then another. Then the disc pulsed again, brighter this time, rippling inward, as if absorbing light rather than emitting it. The beaver reappeared beside Martin, chest heaving. It didn't look at him. It looked at the riverbed with the intensity of an animal facing something older than instinct. "Buddy," Martin panted, kneeling, "what did you build your home around?" The beaver didn't blink. The riverbed answered for it. The pale shape surged closer, fast now, urgent, impossible. Martin shielded his face as a plume of dust erupted 10 yards downstream, as if something beneath the surface had pushed too close and broken through for an instant. He expected claws, a head, a spine, something living. But no creature emerged. Instead, the silence grew heavier. So heavy Martin felt it push into his ears, popping them painfully. The lack of sound was no longer absence. It was a force, a pressure, a weight. Martin yelled, "Hey!" Nothing came out. His throat moved. Air left his lungs. But no sound escaped. He clapped his hands. Silence. He stomped his boot. Silence. The current hadn't stopped speaking. It had been stolen. The disc pulsed again, brighter, sharper, and the riverbed convulsed. A fissure tore upward, splitting dry mud like a zipper being pulled open. Dust billowed. Branches snapped inside the dam. The old wooden frame buckled, and then something rose. Not from above, not from below. From within the riverbed, a column of pale sediment twisted upward, like a rope of packed silt and crushed shells. It held its shape unnaturally, as though glued together by invisible current. It pulsed once, twice, synchronizing with the disc wedged in the dam. Martin stumbled backward, dragging the beaver with him. The column twisted toward them, casting no shadow despite the afternoon sun. Tiny particles flaked from its surface but did not fall. They hung in the air like suspended dust motes, caught in a current that no longer flowed. Martin gasped, not in fear, but in understanding. The thing rising from the earth wasn't a creature. It was the ghost of the river, the pieces of current left behind when the water vanished. All the silt, all the calcium, all the organic memory of flow, held together by a force that didn't want to die. The beaver slapped its tail violently. The impact should have echoed, should have thundered across the valley. It didn't. The column shuddered, Martin whispered, feeling no sound leave his lips. It's trying to move. It's trying to remember what motion felt like. The disc inside the dam pulsed harder, bright as a molten coin. The wooden frame around it cracked, splintering inward as if drawn by vacuum. The column of sediment twisted again, straining toward the dam, not attacking it, seeking it, reuniting with the thing that drained the river. Martin realized too late, the disc wasn't calling the river back. It was taking what remained, stealing motion, stealing sound, stealing the memory of flow. No! He lunged toward the dam, hands outstretched, reaching for the disc, and froze as the pale column lunged with him. It wasn't following him. It was following his movement. It mimicked the arc of his arms. It mirrored the bend of his knees. It twisted exactly how he twisted, only slower, denser, heavier. Martin stumbled back in horror. The column retracted, copying his recoil like a grotesque reflection in thick, grainy water. The disc hummed louder, the first sound Martin had heard in minutes, if it was sound at all. It was thin, metallic, like the ringing of a tuning fork struck underwater. The riverbed trembled again. Pebbles floated. Leaves twitched without wind. The beaver hissed in panic, a sound that vanished into silence before it ever reached the air. The column curled inward, compressing around an invisible spine. It was learning shape, learning motion, learning him. Martin backed away. No, no, you're not. The disc pulsed. The column lunged again. This time its form sharpened. Shoulders, a rough head shape, arms made of silt and memory. The beaver let out a silent scream. Martin felt it in his bones but heard nothing. The column leaned toward him, mimicking the tilt of his fear-frozen posture. It wasn't a ghost of the river. It was the river trying to become something else. Something that could move without water. Something that could speak without sound. Something that needed his shape to finish the transformation. Martin grabbed a broken branch from the ground and lifted it like a sword. The column mirrored him perfectly. Two silhouettes, one flesh, one sediment, facing each other at the edge of a dead river. The disc pulsed, and the riverbed prepared to finish what it had begun. For a moment, everything stood still. Martin, with the branch raised, heart hammering. The beaver crouched low, teeth bared in a silent snarl, and the column of packed silt, shifting, shuddering, mimicking Martin's posture with eerie precision. The disc in the dam pulsed again. The air thickened. Not warmer, not colder. Just thicker, like breathing through cloth. The riverbed trembled. The silt figure leaned forward, matching Martin's stance so perfectly it felt like watching his own reflection through murky glass. Its head twisted, grainy sediment forming a vague jawline, a hollow void where a face should be. Martin staggered back, and the creature followed, step for step. Not exactly, just a half-second delay. Like a lag in a live stream. It wasn't copying him. It was learning him. The riverbed cracked beneath the silt figure's foot, but made no sound. Martin whispered, voice strangled, "Why me?" The beaver slapped its tail, a violent arc that should have echoed like a drum. Instead, the impact rippled through the earth silently, and the silt figure's head snapped toward the beaver. The beaver froze. Martin felt his blood run cold. The silt figure crouched, imitating the beaver's defensive posture, lowering its grainy torso in a stiff, unnatural bend. Its arms hung incorrectly, joints forming in the wrong places as it tried to replicate a shape it didn't understand. The beaver hissed. The creature hissed back. A hiss with no sound, only the shudder of disturbed particles. Martin stepped forward instinctively. "Hey, over here!" The creature jerked toward him, abandoning its attempt to mimic the beaver. It wanted a single template, a consistent one, a body less alien to its new purpose. Martin. His chest tightened. No, don't. The disc pulsed sharply, a bright inward collapse of light. The dam's cracked frame shuddered. The silt creature convulsed. Martin watched in horror as its form thickened. The limbs gained density. The torso straightened. Sediment packed into place, like muscle forming on bone. And then, a wave of motion rolled through the riverbed like an invisible current, pushing the creature forward. The creature stumbled, not from clumsiness, but because it had never known gravity in this way. Martin's stomach twisted. The creature wasn't perfect yet. It was still learning balance. He turned to run, and the creature followed. Fast, too fast. Its legs didn't bend correctly. Its feet didn't sink into the ground. It moved like a stop-motion puppet animated by something that didn't understand joints. Martin sprinted up the embankment, lungs burning, boots skidding on dust. The creature bounded after him, mimicking every angle of his run, arms flailing, back tilting, even the desperate twist of his head to check behind him. He reached the top, just as the ground beneath him cracked. A fissure shot up the embankment like a zipper ripping open from below. Martin jumped sideways, rolling in a cloud of dust. The silt creature leapt after him, but landed badly. Its left arm shattered on impact, collapsing into a crumbling waterfall of dry earth. Martin scrambled to his feet, but the creature didn't scream, didn't retreat. It simply looked at its missing arm, then at Martin's intact one, and began reforming the limb from loose sediment drawn up from the ground. Grains swirled toward it, pulled from the river's memory. The limb reassembled, thicker and more stable than before. It even bent closer to a real elbow. Martin choked, whispering, "You're improving." The creature twitched. It understood tone, if not meaning. The beaver suddenly charged, not at Martin, but at the creature. Its teeth tore into the silt leg, ripping away a chunk of hardened mud. The creature staggered. Martin shouted, "Run!" Silence swallowed the command. The beaver darted into the brush. The creature did not chase it. Instead, it raised its newly formed arm and mimicked Martin's earlier stance. Branch raised, ready to strike. "Oh, God," Martin whispered. "It wants to replace me." The disc pulsed again, the brightest yet, and the dam tore open. The wooden frame collapsed inward, revealing the disc fully at last. No longer embedded, it hovered. Smooth. Perfect. Alive with a sucking, inward glow, the beaver squealed, its sound instantly swallowed, and darted behind a stump for cover. The creature turned toward the disc. It approached like a child seeking instruction. Martin watched, helpless, as the silt figure stood directly before the disc. The disc's glow brightened, scanning up and down the creature's form. A thin beam of light extended from it, touching the creature's chest, and Martin felt the sensation in his chest. A tug, deep, cold, pulling at something not physical, something like rhythm. The creature shuddered violently. Martin clutched his ribs. His heartbeat faltered, syncopating with the disc's pulse. The disc was linking them, comparing them, matching them. Martin fell to his knees. "Stop!" The silt creature convulsed. Its form sharpened, its torso lengthened, its chest broadened, its head narrowed into a human-like shape. A hollow space formed where a mouth should be, a mouth meant to speak. Not water, not river. A human voice. Martin crawled backward, terror clawing up his throat. The disc pulsed one final time. The creature inhaled. Its chest rose, with his rhythm. And then, with a voice made of grinding silt and swallowed echoes, it spoke. "You." Martin's heart stopped, because it wasn't pointing at him. It was pointing at the river. And as the creature turned toward the dead riverbed, the ground trembled in response. The river didn't want the creature. The river wanted its current back, and the creature wanted to give it a body.